Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A light sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Chen. I am your hostess, as usual. Thank you, Brian, who is our co-host, and Henno. Brian, you ran the show by yourself last week, so we appreciate you picking up the ball and running with it. And thank you to Tony and Jeannie for stepping in and helping out. We greatly appreciate it, and it was an awesome, awesome show. So, thanks, you guys. That being said, first, hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey, I actually got.
I'm not by myself.
I got an idea for a new show based on last week's salty, crazy language.
the salty life. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end when Tony. When you guys they're doing the wrap ups, and what's your take from all this? And Tony gives his three takes, and one of them he drops, I think, an S-bomb in there, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And it made me think of, like, what would be great would be to do a show where we talk about you do like self-help based phrases and that kind of stuff, and legit, like, just like we do it, but going real into like self-help stuff, but just curse through the whole thing.
I like this idea.
Like just drop them left and right, but have a serious discussion about how, like, you pick a saying for the week. Mm-hmm. Here's my favorite Wayne Dwyer quote, and then have a discussion on it, but just F-bomb it as much as possible.
Nice.
That's like my idea for another podcast.
You should write that down, because I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking something like season instead of salty.
Right.
Season so self-help.
Yeah.
The salty life.
Yeah. That's what we'll do.
I love it.
We'll do a recap episode of this podcast on that podcast.
That's
Except it'll be the, after dark version, basically.
Yeah, exactly. After.
Right.
Jen's gone to bed now. Yeah. Brian and Henno.
Yep.
We'll recap the episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the B-side.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Oh, that's hilarious.
Every episode comes with a B-side.
I like
I love it.
I was thinking I should have led the show off.
Yeah.
Because I should have been like, hey, blah, 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 it's Brian again. Something like that.
Yeah.
And then been like, hey, and joining me is,
Psych.
Yeah. I got you, dude. I got you.
Always
Yeah.
Brian.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks to Tony and Jeannie. That was great. I've been looking forward to that conversation for a while now. So it was great to listen to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was really, really, it was awesome. And it was a conversation that's been a long time in the waiting wings. So I'm glad it finally was able to be had.
Yeah.
On air anyways.
Yeah. And it's always fun for me to, bust Tony's chops when possible as well. So,
Yeah. It was starting to become the Tony intervention there for a while.
It was, poor guy. Well, what are you going to do? Yeah. That was a lot of fun though,
Well, absolutely. Well, how's your weeks been? And I say weeks because
because that was 2 weeks.
Yeah, y'all have
it's
2
been
weeks
2
to
weeks.
recoup or to recap. I mean,
recap.
Mm-hmm.
My win for the week is still from 2 weeks ago, where it was President's Day weekend, and all of my favorite music and guitar manufacturing companies do their huge President's Weekend sale with 36 months interest-free financing. And I did not buy anything.
Wow.
I checked in with Neil. I don't need this. I just bought a microphone.
Yeah. Right.
I need
Nice.
to say it out loud. So that was my win. That and I have a nice bay window now finally, which that has nothing to do with winning, but that's
but you've talked about it on the show, how it was a source of stress at one point, and then it was, how you've gone through that adventure. So yeah.
Actually, no, you're right. Now that you bring that up, it's true. The whole process of getting it in has not been anxiety inducing in any way, shape, or form. None of that. It's awesome. And all that's left is I have to do the interior work and some painting on the outside, and a little bit, they have to do some roofing. So they found they don't make my roof the profile of the metal any longer, but a roofer took an identical roof off this last summer. And so they set some of it aside. Only we didn't but none of us thought about the fact that it was going to be the third deepest snowpack we've had since 1935. So that roofing material is under about 5 feet of snow.
So what's the problem?
When it melts,
yeah. So about August or so you'll have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if somebody had thought about it, we could have put it in my garage or something. So we'll wait a little bit on that. But yeah, that's all done. And I had a friend this is, if you hear yawns, people, we've all admitted to being very tired tonight. Mine is, I had a friend out of town for a week, and it was awesome, but you tend to have more late nights and that kind of stuff. And I felt really tired. And I even had a couple of nights where even last night, I went to bed at 10, which is pretty early for me.
Yeah.
To be actually in bed. I started to, I went to record some more vocals for Life Sucks, and something was wrong. They were being recorded a little delayed, and I started to get very frustrated. And before I went into throw headphones down rage, I'm like, I think I'll go to bed.
Yeah. That's a better answer.
So I had a great. Yeah. It is way better. Yeah. I this morning when I woke up, I felt a lot better about the whole thing. But it's weird. Like today, I just feel tired, and I have no reason to.
Yeah.
At all. I have no reason to be tired. I have plenty of sleep, but I am freaking tired.
Out of curiosity, Henno, what is your weather like there today?
Today was actually sunny.
Oh, okay.
And cool.
Like here, it was just completely overcast and rainy, and days like that tend to just sap at your energy. So that's why I was wondering if you had anything like that too. Mm-hmm. So all right.
Yeah, we didn't. It started dreary, but the sun came out, and it was just really cool today. And yes, I had a great day at work. It wasn't anything utterly strenuous. Yeah. I needed to clear all the snow off of a roof section that just keeps leaking and leaking. We have ice dams really bad and all this. And so my part of the project today, we hooked up a hose to a hot water source and dragged it up onto the roof because we have these massive hot water tanks so we can, use tons of hot water.
Yeah.
And so I sat there literally slicing with a water hose all day long, slicing sections while somebody else shoveled the squares away. So I had a rough day. Whew,
yeah.
Standing there with the hot water hose.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds brutal, man.
I know. I'm telling you. And they paid me for it too. Those, so-and-so. Those.
Whoa, this isn't last week. Yeah.
I got no excuse.
Yeah. Wow. I guess not.
There you have it.
Whoever did the shoveling probably has an excuse, but
I did feel almost guilty at one point.
Almost.
Not quite. Almost.
Well, the best part about this kind of stuff is just the honesty of it, because it's like, I almost felt guilty about it. It's like, instead of pretending you did.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I always go out of my way to, here, your turn. Give me the shovel.
Sure.
I'll let the old man do something. The best was when finally you got two, God, this is just so not even relevant to this podcast, but it was hilarious.
It's fine.
So we got two valley flashings that come down. And everything's, it's icy, it's wet, it's nasty. And it was like, watch out for the valley, watch out for the valley. And all of a sudden, finally at the end of the day, there goes Omar. Whoop.
Oh boy.
And luckily we're over a deck. So it's like it's a 9-foot drop, and we already unloaded all the snow down there. So we just fell into a giant snowbank. It was like no big deal.
Gotcha.
But it was like, hey, and then the best part is this is, how you getting back up, dude? Those doors are locked. But it was fun. I like days where, because I often am working alone. Like right now, I'm doing lots of interior work from leaks, and I'm working alone. And I do really enjoy the days that we get to go up and do something. We do something mindless because we can chat and we can, kind of, BS with each other. And I do like my work. I do.
Right.
That's a huge blessing. Because right now, Sharon is looking at having to get a new job because of changes at her work. And it immediately, the anxiety, boom, through the roof.
Yeah.
Change is about to happen. And there's fear involved with it and all that stuff. And it makes me go, I'm so lucky to just, I've been at the same job again. My first job I worked at for 15 years. This one's been 10.
Yeah.
That's super lucky. So I will go with gratitude.
Yeah, that's certainly, that perspective certainly makes it easier to do that.
Anyhow, I pass.
All right, Brian, how have you been?
No, you should go next because, again, you guys both have way more to talk about than
2 weeks.
I do. Yeah.
Well,
it's been 2 weeks.
My 2 weeks have been pretty uneventful. I'm still in the process of unpacking. I've had a steady stream of guests. I had my brother-in-law came down and stayed with us for a few days, so I got to help, play housewife and make sure the house was all nice and neat and cook dinners and do all that good stuff. And then my brother came over. My brother lives south of us, so he came up and spent a couple days with us. So I've been a very, very busy housewife, making sure that the inside of the house is taken care of because the guys have been outside doing manly work, which all of the women that are cringing as I speak right now, I apologize. It was not intended to be gender split, but we did do the typical gender split in the chores around the house. This is kind of how we do it, folks. Sorry.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Yep. That's just how it works in my household. So the guys were out with the chainsaws. I was inside cooking dinner. Just kind of how it worked.
Yeah.
But, so I'm still trying to unpack. I did catch myself a bit of a bug, so if my voice sounds funny, I apologize. I am a little stuffy tonight, and my voice has been going in and out, so hopefully it holds for the rest of the podcast.
You caught a bug up your nose?
I did. I caught a bug up my nose.
That's a bad idea.
Pull that thing out, man. Come on.
Yeah.
I know, right? Just like fish it out. Pull it out there. But, in some news, we did get some bad news that, I've been having a lot of interesting things. I've had a lot of injuries and, unfortunately, a death in the family. So it's been kind of crazy as far as a lot of people needing my attention and needing my my shoulder. And
service.
So, yes, I found a lot of opportunity to be of service to people, which was really great. You know, I love being of service to people. Lots of service the last couple weeks. A little bit too much service, I think. Sometimes you have to pull back a little bit and make sure that you are giving yourself some self-care. So I'm kind of in the self-care process right now. And my puppy, my newest addition to the family, we took him to the vet and we found out that he has a heart murmur. So the poor baby has to go get an echocardiogram and go to a cardiologist. So hopefully he's okay. So, yes, I have.
Nobody can see, but I'm throwing a lower lip.
Yep, this is sad.
Yep.
The poor baby.
Yep.
He's acting fine, so everything should be hopefully fine. But between him and I have 2 family members on crutches, and so yeah, it's just been kind of crazy, eventful, but non-eventful. If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Like when my brakes suddenly went out this week, that was kind of a disturbing thing.
Nah, it's a good time.
Luckily, I was
that's
just
very
pulling,
disturbing.
Yeah, I was pulling into a parking space. Luckily, when it happened.
It happened. I was in the car with my brother once, and that happened. But luckily, where we were pulling out onto a really busy road, but just fortunately, there was no traffic, and there was a car wash next door. So he just, basically, we went out into the street, turned immediately right into there, and then there was, those like concrete parking barriers, and he basically just ran the car into that to stop us.
One of those,
yeah. So we were very lucky that there wasn't traffic coming because he wouldn't have been able to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
hence no brakes.
Yeah, so that's good that
it's weird.
You were able to basically have that same kind of experience, that it wasn't I'm on the highway, I have no brakes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able I was able to limp home and kind of figure out what the problem is and figure out what I'm going to do. But then it's like like you're talking about, Jen. There's okay, so that's an expense now that I wasn't planning on having.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got to deal with that. And it's those are the things that I'm supposed to be prepared for, but I'm typically not because,
yeah,
life happens.
Life happens, exactly. Yep. And it's weird how you can have all these little things, like the disruption of having people, at the house all week. I mean, it was wonderful to see the work done, but off schedule. I'm sleeping on the couch. Neck is done. Just routines are disturbed when you have friends in town. Routines are disturbed. We don't get to do the things that we do to touch base. And it's weird how you can sit there and you say, life's been pretty good, but I'm a little pooped.
Yeah.
Like it's taxed me a little bit.
Sure.
It really has. I mean, there's just when I stop and I look back at it, I mean, I think one of the wins for the week is actually, there's 2 sides to it here. It's a win for me, but also a win for my husband. And I'm claiming his win for him because he's not on the show. But
nice.
I think it's important that that he recognizes it for himself, but also he gets recognized for it. But for me, is I held it all together. When I didn't get shaken and I didn't have to pull back, I just pushed through and I was able to be of service to many different people at many different times. I wasn't perfect, but that's okay. And I accept my imperfections, and I know that people appreciated everything that I was able to do and I was able to be there for. So
good.
My win is accepting my imperfections.
That's
good.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
That's a tough thing to do a lot of times. So that's, certainly not anything to sneeze at,
It's really, I have a really hard time with that.
Mm-hmm.
As I have a tendency to second guess myself and to attack myself for things that I didn't do up to my own personal standards.
Right.
And so I'm very proud that I'm able to say that. Now, my husband's win, we were dealing with something and basically a health issue having to deal with me, and I was getting a little bit too much in my own head. And I told him, I'm like, well, this next time I won't even say anything to you. And I said, so that way you don't think I'm all that crazy. And he stopped because I said I got too much in my own head, and I just went goofy over it and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
He turned and looked at me, and he's like, no, that's not how this works. How this works is you tell me where you're at. I have the opportunity to get in front of it. I know where your head's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives me the chance to get in front of it and gives me the chance to basically be of service to you.
Yes.
To be of service to me. And so that he can make sure that he keeps me from getting so far down the rabbit hole that then he has to work twice as hard to bring me back.
Mm. And after he said this, did you go out and bake him a cake? Because that was like the most amazing thing that any partner could ever say to another one.
I know. And
in the most loving, kind way to be called out on your stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But he calls me crazy, and it's not PC, but I get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
He's like, you're crazy. You take crazy meds. Your doctors call you, give you crazy meds because you're crazy. You're just crazy. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, it is what it is. So we're pretty blunt about things, and he's a very blunt person.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him to say this, but that's him. It's like he's very brash, very blunt, very forward. Mm. And for him to just out there with it, he's like, no, this is my way of helping you. Mm. Is if you keep this stuff inside and let it bottle up, he's like, then I'll never be able to get in front of it, and I will end up having to be picking up pieces. And he's like, that's when you have your breakdowns, is when you don't talk.
Yeah.
He's like, you have to talk to me. You have to tell me where your head's at. You have to constantly be giving me that input so that I can work on my end. As
we talked before, when the rules change, you have to tell people that the rules have changed. Like I was given a packet of stuff today at the doctor's office, and one of the things in there talks about taking depressive thoughts and replacing them with realistic ones, which is, for those longtime listeners, essentially the same as the distorted thinking worksheet stuff. And one of the first things on this was, can I get more evidence maybe by asking someone about the situation? And that's kind of what that reminded me of also, because you've always been one to do that. Like when you think you're in your head too much, you'll ask someone else who's clearly not of the same thought process to basically, it's, again, as much as I don't like to word it this way, but it becomes am I crazy, or is this is this kind of, is this the way a lot of people would think, and, and it's the truth, because sometimes somebody on the outside can kind of go, no, you're right. You're like, this is what's going on. And other times they can be like, no, you're like 10 steps down the road. Like, let's just worry about what's right here. And he's doing that for you essentially and helping you do that. So that's great that he did it, because it's hard enough for people who who know of this technique essentially to do it for themselves, let alone have someone else step out in front of you and try to help you through that. So that's great. Yeah.
Exactly. But if you ask him, he'll say it's only because he doesn't want to have to deal with my extra crazy later
That's fine.
on.
That's fine too, though. Really, I mean, but it's as silly as it is and whatever. But it's the truth. You know, it really is that, and that's the point. That's why these things exist. Is we all are trying to do that, so we don't have to deal with that down the road. I'm trying to not have to deal with severe depression. You're trying to not deal with, depression or a manic type situation or whatever it is that you'd run into off of, or just feeling out, feeling horrible and whatever, so it's the same ideas. Yeah.
But he actually even used the word manic. He's like, I don't want you going manic on me. Mm-hmm. And, and that just, for someone who's not a big proponent in mental health and comes from the school of pull up your bootstraps.
Yeah.
Put your boot, from someone who comes from that school of thought, he comes out sometimes with things like that are very insightful, and it shows shows a window into who he truly is, not the persona he likes to play on TV. Basically.
Right.
It shows the level of acceptance.
Yes.
Compassion.
This is hit.
And then now add to that communication, like the lack of fear to communicate. That's I think the most important thing is, and I know that, Sharon and I had to have some talks this week ourselves about some things. And the hardest things is just to sometimes say something, to just say. We're out of fear of retribution or reprisals or whatever it is, or, we basically shut our pie hole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just grin and bear it.
Yep.
And that is, not communication, not acceptance,
right.
Not reality. But where it's like, this is not it's not a judgment. It's like, Brian, you were just talking about, it's like that's how cognitive therapy works.
Yes.
It's like, get out of your fantasy and get into reality. This is reality. And to have that type of, and I consider that intuitively handling a situation,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah.
Where it's like, to me, those are like little miracles. They shouldn't be, but to me they are, because well, like Jeannie said on the last week's Crazy Life, relationships aren't lucky. They're hard freaking work.
Right.
Yes, they are.
They can start
so
out
lucky.
as lucky.
No.
Like the fact that, like it can start as lucky because some weird situation puts you to, around the same place, maybe if you'd never met before. That's the luck of it. From there on, it's not luck anymore. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that is great.
You're welcome. Yeah, and
it's also always
funny.
nice to know that the people around you are listening, that they're that they are there to be your support system, not just, that they're not dismissive or whatever. So,
well,
it's always
how much would it stink for us to do this show every week, and then, people immediately around us that know that we do this don't, like none of it even absorbs into them, like, like you talk about all these tools and everything, and imagine that you get off, that'd be the worst curse ever.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I talk about these tools all week, and then the people around me don't have any of them.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, so I was very, very proud of him, and I told him as much, that he needs to be as proud of himself about it. And, he's like, whatever. He's like, I was making
man mode.
Yep. It's like,
we now resume our regularly scheduled program.
Right.
Pretty much.
Like, you were just being really nice and helpful, and now you're minimizing my feelings.
There you go. Yeah, that's the guy I'm used to.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Right.
That's great.
So how about you, Brian?
this week has been very interesting because this is the third day of the week and the third podcast that I've done. And I have another one on Friday still.
Those.
Yep. So by the end of this week, I'm going to be, worthless essentially. As far as social stuff goes, I'm just,
you've not reached Brian.
Yeah.
I will not be in for several days.
Right? Now, what's really cool about this though is that I'm going to have these, 4 out of 5 days this week of podcasts, but next Monday is my first day back in therapy since whatever it was last year. Was it August, September, something like that? Yeah. So it's been a long time since I was there. And, so I finally get to go do that again. So coming off of a week like this where I might be feeling kind of high stress or whatever, it'll be nice to get back in there and kind of get my feet back under me, from whatever it is I get from therapy. So that I'm looking forward to that. And this has been really fun. Like I love doing these, but it is a lot to do, day after day after day. It's really interesting because, when you do like multiple podcasts, especially if they're more than like half an hour or something, like each one you do is an hour, 2 hours, you hit that point of kind of going, man, people on the radio I know they have breaks because obviously they're playing music, but like talk radio or something where you're on pretty much for 4 hours or whatever, it's like, I have a whole different appreciation for people who do that job, Yeah. But, otherwise that's pretty much what I've been doing this week. But, our weather's been up and down. That's messing with me as normal. But again, that's long time stuff, like, that I'm pretty well used to. And, as far as a win for the week goes, this week it's probably that, again, first of all, I know for the second week in a row that I'm kind of loading myself socially more than normal. And I also am basically planning nothing for this weekend, because I know I'm going to need that to recover essentially. But my, bigger win for the week is that, I went to the doctor's today and I actually remembered to take a list of medicines I needed refills on. Cause I am so bad about that. Like I'll go in and the doctor will, you need any refills? I'm like, it's, what would be nice is like when you go to the pharmacy, it'd be kind of nice if like the label would be a different color when you're on your last one or something like that, so you're I need a refill, because what happens is I start taking it, I get down to about, 10 or so left. And then I look at the bottle, I'm like, oh, and we've discussed on the show before how I am about, calling to get that done. So,
yeah,
not good, but yeah. So I did that. And then, I talked a couple weeks ago about, the, program that this doctor's office has to kind of help, facilitate, to make sure that all, I'm using all the resources that are out there for me, and, I went for, met with a social worker today about that part of it. So, which was kind of funny because like I get there, they hand me a packet and they're like, we need you to fill this out. And it was basically, the mental illness packet. It had, stuff about depression, bipolar, PTSD, and, drug and alcohol use. So, they basically, you have to, and sleep. They had a bit in there about sleep. So, and I was just like, I filled these out like a million times already, but I haven't done one in a while for the whole packet in a while. So, whatever. And then I, had a talk with the social worker about that and everything. And it was funny because at one point, she's like, wow, she's like, you're really honest. And I was like, yeah, I talk on a podcast.
Isn't that funny when that's a shock?
Yeah. And I was like, well, I talk on a podcast about it. I'm pretty open about everything. So it's gotten easier, when she asks me this or this, and I can just like, here it is, like, no, like, oh, should I say this or hanging back on it? I'm like, nope, here it is. I'm just, because the more honest I am with her, the better she can do her job, which is nothing but beneficial to me, So same as going to see a doctor, if I'm not honest with people, they can't help me as much. So, and I'm well past the being embarrassed about my anxiety or depression or whatever. I'm not embarrassed by it anymore, So when I talk to people, it's like, this is who I am, No different than when I tell people about my allergies, It's like, I just have an allergy to being happy. No, I'm kidding. I kid. So yeah, that's been my week.
Nice. Well, we've all been talking about a little bit about how we're sleepy, and which begs the question, how sleep interacts with anxieties and addictions and all the other good stuff. And I thought it would be a good time for us to kind of talk about that and kind of see where that takes us. Now, something that I know you were mentioning earlier on, I think it was before the show started, is that there were studies done where they would wake people up before they went to REM sleep to see how that reacted.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty much a classic study that you'll find in most psychology. You'll learn in your psychology classes when they get into REM sleep is they hook people up to electrodes and they're monitoring them. As soon as they start to go to REM sleep, they wake them up. And they did this, and after about 3 nights of that, people started to and then, every day they're doing their questionnaires and whatever it is. And it's after 3 days, the anxiety starts to kick in. The brain is just going crazy and all that stuff. And they were sleeping, so that they did sleep. They just never got to that REM sleep. And all sorts of things affect our REM sleep. And, alcohol does, any sort of drugs, various things can affect our REM sleep. And,
well, that's what the difference between passing out and actually sleeping.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can always tell when you've had too much to drink and you don't actually sleep. You may look asleep, may act asleep, but you never get to REM.
Yeah.
So if you don't get to REM, then it doesn't count. Or it counts for a little. It doesn't count like REM does.
Mm-hmm.
And for everyone, that stands for rapid eye movement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the part of our sleep where it's our most, what would you call it, recuperative for our brain.
Yeah.
It's the
deepest form. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to even look as, I don't like the terms deep as much as it's a very productive time.
Yeah.
For our bodies to recoup.
It's really like, and it's like the defragmentation time for our brain too.
Your defrag drive, yeah.
It really is. That's part of what it's, part of what happens when you sleep is that your brain basically dumps a bunch of stuff. I remember, I don't remember if we talked about it on here, if I talked about it on Salty Language, about how there was a study or something basically saying that, your brain empties the trash while you're sleeping, and that if you don't get that kind of sleep, time and time again, that stuff kind of builds up, and that they were kind of looking at that there may be again, don't connection between like Alzheimer's or dementia and that may be the link between the two, because the less sleep you get, the more likely you are to get those things, so and that this might be the reason, is that your brain needs to defrag every night so that you don't have that in there.
So there's not a fire sale in all memories.
Yeah. Oh, memories are a whole different topic.
Yeah.
If people listening ever want to really find out stuff that'll really kind of blow your mind about how your brain works and how it lies to you, start looking for books on memories and how your brain rebuilds through your lifetime and stuff. There's some really interesting stuff about how a lot of our reality might be us lying to ourselves. So
interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, in fairness, we've talked about it on here essentially.
Yeah.
You know, a depressed brain lies to itself, telling you things are terrible, but they're not. You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you can't trust your own mind is a very, very, very scary place to be.
Yeah. That, and to think about this idea of like, when we're in periods of anxiety, we tend to not sleep well.
Mm-hmm.
And what does not sleeping well cause?
More anxiety.
Periods of anxiety.
Yeah. Yep. Such a cycle. Yeah. And then not sleeping can lead to depression, you know, and back to anxiety from, it's a whole mess.
Cortisol release.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just, you know, the brain chemicals that are just not healthy for us.
Yeah.
That have been proven to they're linked to physical problems.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, one of the first things I'll say here before we get too far into this is much like everything else we talk about on here, you know, we're not doctors or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you are having trouble sleeping, and maybe, and not like just every once in a while I can't fall asleep, but a pretty regular type thing, whether it's anxiety based or just in general, make sure you talk to your doctor because, you know, it could be like, you know, sleep apnea type things too. It might not be a mental health situation. It might just be you have sleep apnea, or maybe you have, you know, some congestion issues that, you know, or whatever. So again, you know, as I've said before, go get the estimate, you know?
Yeah. That's actually, you know what, that's really a great point because that, I mean, I know a lot of people who ultimately went in and got diagnosed with sleep apnea.
Yeah.
And they literally thought they were suffering from depression.
Yeah. And it makes a huge difference because once you start getting that restful sleep, you're recharged, you know, whereas if you don't get enough
energy
sleep,
level went through the roof.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that,
It's amazing.
that has a lot to do with me that most days I wake up and I don't feel rested because I'm only sleeping about 2 hours at a time. And then I'm awake for an hour or two and then back to, you know, I'm not getting a real good sleep in that time. So I wake up fatigued and then I start my day fatigued, you know, it's like, you know, starting your day with your battery at half charge, you know?
Yeah. The thing that happens with sleep apnea is your body also kind of oxygenates your blood all night long, and you're not oxygenating your blood because you're not properly getting that changeover.
Right.
And so here you have this physical component that ends up really being a lot like a mental component.
Yeah.
You know, low energy, all that kind of stuff, and then it perpetuates. And what that's great advice. To sleep stuff is. There's a reason why there's some serious professionals.
Yeah. And it is.
Absolutely.
It is maybe the absolute, you know how like, in exercising over the last like 10-ish years, how there's been way more emphasis on like core exercises because of how important that area of the body is to, you know, your back. And, you know, you don't think about the fact that if your back is tight, maybe you need to stretch your hamstrings out. You know, a lot of people don't think those ways, you know. And so different muscles lead to different stuff, of course, because they're all connected. And sleep is very much this way too, is that it's really one of the most basic and biggest building blocks in your overall health, you know, because if you just don't sleep much or don't get good restful sleep, there's so many, you know, your likelihood of various other conditions go up, you know. So it's definitely something to, if you can, get help or get past it, solve the issue, you know, then do it, you know. So you know, obviously just, you know, be careful that you're not doing something that you can get addicted to something, you know. So.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's some really great things on the market nowadays, that really help with sleep. One of them is no longer do you have to take NyQuil. You can take that ZQuil.
Yeah.
Because no need to over-medicate. You can just, you know, take the sleep stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's sleep aids and stuff like that are non-habit forming.
Again, talk to your doctor first because some of those contain alcohol, which can, you know, people may have issues with or may have other issues with medicines you're currently on, that kind of stuff. So again, always talk to your doctor
You always want to
first.
make sure.
Yep.
But there's definitely things that can help you with that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting when you start talking about sleep and what sleep can do. It's so beneficial, but when it breaks down to the mental health, I think, like you were talking about a little bit there, Hannah, like your friend who thought they were depressed, but they were actually sleep deprived because of sleep apnea. You know, it's amazing what the lack of sleep will convince our brains and will do to us. And like the anxiety attacks and stuff that come from it. So it's really important, but yet we spend so little time actually devoting our lives to proper sleep.
Yeah.
You know, we put everything else pretty much in front of, including our favorite TV shows, in front of getting proper sleep.
Video games.
Social media. Yeah. All of it.
Yeah. All of that stuff becomes in front of a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
So, and it's so much easier just to like, oh, well, I'll just take a pill then for my anxiety versus taking a look at maybe this could be exasperating, maybe not causing, but making things worse by not sleeping well.
Right.
Yeah. And then what do we like? Well, I did this yesterday. I was listening to this podcast where somebody started talking about pizza, and I was really tired. And this guy kept talking about pizza and how he loves eating pizza.
Huh. Sounds like a brilliant guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And the next thing you know, I'm in the grocery store buying a pizza.
Yes.
And a huge amount of chocolate.
I get a kickback from that.
Yeah. Because I was sleepy.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. I didn't get much sleep the night before. And I was, my friend was leaving. I was like, we hung out talking late and blah, blah, blah. And on the way home, it's like that I had actual food that I could prepare at home. I had gone shopping. I had some nice tri-tip steak. I had some asparagus. I was going to grill, and it was just like my will meter was, on empty. My self-control meter was completely done, and I'm like, pizza.
Yeah.
But then what happens? Well, I end up with some heartburn, so that I don't sleep again. Like that thing happens. Like you're tired, so you don't eat well, and what does that do? It makes you not sleep well again.
Yeah.
Well, they talk about one of the keys to good sleep is routine.
Yep.
And it's also, drinking plenty of water, is eating correctly.
Well,
and
water you have to be careful of, like that you don't drink too much near bedtime because you may wake up because you have to go empty your bladder out. So, be careful with that too.
Right.
So
you gotta, but if you get your body into the routine that you drink X amount of water throughout the day, and your body will adjust itself so that it knows, when you have to go to the bathroom. It basically adjusts everything to suit what you need to do for your sleep. If that makes any sense. But
I listened to a podcast.
I'm running on low sleep here, folks.
I listened. I can't remember what podcast it was that was talking about sleep at one time. I think I actually talked about it on here. About how there was a guy who's a sleep expert, and he basically was talking about how he's like, we prepare to do all these other things in our lives. He's like, but we don't go through. Most people don't go through like a going to bed ritual. He's like, we just change or get into whatever we sleep in and boom, we're in bed. Or maybe they'll read a book or something or watch a little TV, but it's not, he's like, whereas really you should start the process of shutting everything down gradually across like 2 hours before bed. Because then by the time you actually climb into bed, you've wound way down to where it's easier to sleep. Whereas most people are like, well, my bedtime is 11 at 10:59. They set their phone down on the, the stand next to them and then turn the light out. So you still from that point on have to, your body has to decompress all of that, to relax and shut down. So, and I thought that was something, it was a really great point that I haven't heard many people talk about, but it makes tons of sense,
Well, that goes with the idea of are we looking at screens? Are we fooling ourselves? I mean, I know everybody has done that thing where you woke up for some reason in the middle of the night and you picked up the phone or the tablet or whatever, and then the next thing you know, you're not going to bed.
Yeah.
Because you basically just told your brain, hey, here's a bunch of light.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because LED lights basically tell your brain to wake up. You know, your brain receives LEDs essentially as sunlight. So as a result, that's exactly what happens. If you look at them for too long, your brain's going to wake up, you know? So definitely, that's why a lot of experts and stuff will tell you don't even take those things in your bedroom. Like that, you know, you shouldn't have a TV in your bedroom, no computer, no devices of any kind. That your bed, like on this, I have a list here of things that I got today. Actually, it talks about things, you know, sleep hygiene is what it's called. And one of them on there talks about, use your bed only for sleep, essentially. Because then when you get into bed, your brain goes, it's time to go to sleep, you know. Mm-hmm. And same with all those devices. If you bring all of them into the room with you, then you've got all those distractions just waiting to, you know, suck your time.
And I hear more parents talk to me about this, or, you know, come up in conversation where it's more important for their kids.
Yeah.
You know, where they're trying to establish routine because basically kids on a routine end up being better behaved kids.
Yep.
And part of that is also to, you know, that at whatever 45 minutes prior to bedtime, there are no devices. You know, that you need to click off that, you know, you need to tell your brain that, hey, it's not, you know, it's not daylight.
Right.
Know?
Yes.
Yeah. It's time to shut down. Yeah. It's time to close shop, you know. It's the same thing. And that's the thing, like with the sleep or the devices and stuff. It's, you know, we've talked about this on here before about how that's probably the number one reason why most people have you noticed how many people you talk to now are like, man, I just can't get to sleep, you know? And it's like, well, yeah, all day we're sticking a device in our face. It's a constant, like, it'd be like, you know, you're like sticking a needle into your hand every 5 minutes or whatever, you know, like at some point you're like, man, my hand really hurts and I can't figure out why. It's like, well, my hand doesn't hurt. And you're like, well, do you stick it with a pin? Well, no, you know, I quit doing that. You know, it's like, so it's the same idea. It's like we keep staring at these devices and at some point we have to put them away. And then if you put them away, you're doing other stuff and you still have trouble going to sleep, then it's a difference. You know, now it's like, okay, well, I need to, you know, try something else or seek out help or something, you know, maybe go have a sleep study done, whatever. And, you know, cause if you haven't put your device down, it's like saying you've tried everything to lose weight, but you haven't actually tried eating less, you know, or eating better or what, you know, it's like you're not quite doing everything you need to do. And most people don't need to have their nose in their phone or whatever right up until bedtime. You know, you usually can put it away an hour before or 2 hours, whatever.
Nah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's things like I use my iPad as my books now, but luckily the iPad now has, you know, a different night light, you know, where it dims it and actually can change the color, makes it warmer looking.
Yep.
So it doesn't affect you as much. And then the other part of it is, you know, there are certain things that our bodies do adjust. You know, I'm one of those people that I come home typically every day. I have a cup of coffee at 5 o'clock.
Right.
I can go to bed at 10 o'clock. I don't have a problem with it because I have a huge tolerance to caffeine.
Yeah.
So and I sleep well. It doesn't adversely affect if I did it later at night, it's not happening.
Right.
You know. Mm-hmm. But there are people like my sister. If she has a cup of coffee at 1:30, nope, not sleeping that night.
Well, that's like,
but, you know,
this list I have here actually says avoid caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine for that reason. And they don't mean like cut back on it. They mean totally avoid those things.
Avoid it. Yeah.
Because for some people, like you said, their sensitivity to those things is much higher, you know, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think where you're going, Brian, with all this is take a look at what your habits are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is as a piece of advice. Is if you are having trouble sleeping, if you're finding you're more tired often, then that's what I did this week. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling really tired. What are the factors? What are the things that I've been doing that are different?
Yeah.
You know, take a look at, you know, do you do these things? Is there some small thing that you can maybe change and see if it does anything?
Right. Exactly.
Did it help you out? Did it make a difference or not? Do you feel better? Because I know for myself, after a few days of not sleeping, I tend to be a little less tolerant.
Yep.
I tend to be a little less forgiving, and those are all things that I try to avoid because, like we talk about all the time, life lifes us enough without like almost volunteering ourselves
exactly.
for lifing us.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, you're right, because the more, like, the less you sleep or whatever, the more likely you are to get set off by something. So then life can maybe throw, a little heat at you and it, boom, it becomes a nuclear warhead at that point, and, because you're not going to be in the position you need to be to handle your problems or whatever. Yeah, because we've all been there, I'm sure, to where, you don't get a lot of sleep, then you go to work, and then something gets thrown on you, and somebody's a little bit of a jerk to you, and next thing you know, you're screaming at them. It's those kind of things. You see them happen a lot, and, obviously you want to try to prevent as much of that as you can.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and and like you were talking about earlier, Hanno, your inhibitions are lower, your decision-making skills are lowered, so...
Yeah, and in fairness, your reactions are slower too, which is something to consider, driving. You're putting, you're more dangerous as a driver if you're tired. I saw they had it on the evening news a couple weeks ago, I think, that, that accidents caused by tired drivers have been, or maybe it's just in this area, like in Detroit or whatever, but the accidents caused by, tired drivers has like sharply risen over the last couple years, so it's very important. Like I said, it's really the ground floor of your overall health.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I don't know. Do we have any more we want to talk about, guys?
That was a nice chat.
Yeah. Well, let me like on this list that I have, let me run down these real quick, even though we've talked about some of these before.
Sure.
And, the first one is set a schedule, which we've talked about here, setting a routine basically, and of saying, okay, at this time I'm going to shut all my devices down. At this time I'm going to, if you're a bath before bed or something person, I'm going to take a bath to relax and, then, or I'm going to meditate or something like that. And then I'm going to, now at 10 o'clock, okay, now I'm going to get into bed. Whatever your routine needs to be. Also, by having a routine, like Henno had mentioned, you might, you can tinker with the routine a little bit to see if something in that routine is making the situation worse. Again, if you don't turn your devices off until right before you go to sleep, maybe back that up half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever and see if that makes a difference, The next one is don't force yourself to sleep, which is always a good one because that leads to a lot of anxiety and stuff, You lay there for half an hour, can't sleep, and you just start worrying about not being able to sleep. It's like it says here, get up, do something like, that's distracting. Read, draw, but don't be careful of stuff that starts really engaging your mind. It actually says to avoid TV because it can cause you to be more awake. So, same with social media, because if you're reading and start thinking, your brain starts firing back up basically. So you don't want to, reading a book's a little different generally because you're just focused on that. There's not that constant stimulation of social media. Avoid caffeine, alcohol, and nicotine. We talked about that a little bit. It does make a point in here. It says even be careful of decaf because, some of the decaf has caffeine. And it also points out that caffeine can stay in your body for 12 hours. So, if you are like, Henno's sister and have, a sensitivity to it, be careful of that. Avoid napping because, if you get your sleep via naps, then your body kind of recharges. And then when it's time to go to sleep, you won't necessarily be as tired. Again, there's always exceptions to these because there are a lot of people who nap through the day and still go to bed at like 10 o'clock at night, no problem.
Me.
Yeah. Use your bed for only sleep. We talked about that because it's a way of training your brain into, okay, I'm in bed, which means it's time to go to sleep. Same with, I know it's not on here, but there's another one I remember years ago was, and this isn't as big of a deal now probably, but for a while, you know, a lot of people had like an alarm clock in their room with like red numbers on it or, you know, bright green or something like that. And those kind of things can keep you awake. You know, and really you can focus on them. So plus if you know exactly what time it is, you can obsess on what time it is. You know, so they recommend, like, if you use your phone as your alarm, turn it upside down or whatever, so you're not constantly looking at it or something.
You know, one of the other things with that you know, associating bed with sleep is also if you wake up at night and you find that, you know, you're having a bout of insomnia, get out of bed.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've heard that mentioned many times is you know, if you're going to sit and read, go somewhere else and read. And that way you don't start associating bed with insomnia.
Yep. That's a good point.
That's a very good point. And also the temperature of the room makes a difference.
Very, very important because your body needs to cool down to sleep. So don't have your room too hot.
Make sure the room is a couple degrees cooler, and, you know, use a fan if needed.
The next one's exercise and eat well, which, you know, exercising, you know, or, you know, like in Heno's situation, I think like the fact that your job various times is, you know, physically demanding, you know, anybody who has physically demanding kind of jobs, that certainly will help you fall asleep because you're tired. You know,
well, that goes along with exercise. Even moderate exercise can help our clocks, our internal clocks, kind of come into alignment. And I find that my sleeping patterns get way better with even just a small amount of exercise.
No, there you go. Yeah, that's actually, it says it right here. It says avoid strenuous exercise and big meals for 2 hours before going to bed because otherwise, you know, you have heartburn or indigestion or whatever. Just, you can't get to sleep as well. And then the last one is, you know, sleep in a comfortable environment, which, you know, make sure it's adequately quiet, comfortable and dark. You know, if you got to get blackout curtains or like I sleep with dark curtains. Again, this is mostly because I fall asleep through the day a lot of times, but I have dark curtains. I wear an eye mask, you know. But you know, if you have to use white noise or fans or earplugs or whatever. But yeah, you know, and also in the exercise area, meditation is not on this list directly, but meditation helps a lot of people, clear their head before bed too and relax. So definitely don't overestimate that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Those are great ideas.
Yeah. And I have, one more thing if you guys don't mind here that's totally unrelated to this topic.
Sure.
But it's something that's kind of a callback to an older episode of ours. Like when we talked about like, online dating and such, there was an episode of Hidden Brain this 3 weeks ago, something like that. It's number 61 and it's called Just Sex. And they discuss the difference of the hookup culture versus, looking for long-term relationships and how the dating, a lot of people have meant how society's kind of changing the way they look at these things and about how like, some people are basically, how people are essentially getting shamed for having feelings rather than just hooking up and stuff. It was a really interesting listen, especially if you're like me. I just like, I'm very, very interested in what makes people tick when it comes to, well, almost anything, but also with like dating and stuff. It's a really interesting look at the way the culture is kind of changing and you can argue good or bad, you know. I think I made a comment when we did the episode before on online dating that I think the illusion of choice is one of the worst things that's ever happened to people. You know, even though now the net is wider than it's ever been, the illusion of if you're in a situation and people can kind of just at any time pull up Tinder and just start, you know, swiping right until they get a match basically. Kind of gives them I can just go away. I can go over here if I need to instead of facing and dealing with issues, you know?
Right.
And it also is kind of making people act, like feelings are a bad thing, you know?
Yeah.
And that overall
that.
for culture, that doesn't seem to be a good thing. You know, the more sterilized we become to everything doesn't seem to be a good idea. So, yeah. Like I said, it was a really interesting
listen. It's
listen.
going to go back the other way. It's just
me too.
in its time, but hopefully it doesn't take too long for it to start trending back the other way.
Right, because realistically, people have been traditionally dating forever. And the online dating stuff is within the last X amount of years, you know, so we're in the infant stage of it, but it's something that I think is a really interesting shift, you know. So anyway, in the show, again, as I mentioned before, first of all, Hidden Brain's a great podcast. Second of all, the episodes are usually half an hour or less, you know, 45 minutes at the longest, I think. So it's a good one to listen to if you're interested in that kind of stuff.
Good. Awesome. All right. Well, is that it, folks? Do you wrap up?
Yeah, I think so.
Do it.
All right. Let's do it. So if you want to continue the conversation with us, you can reach me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. You can also reach us on our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can also reach us via email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. And you, Heno?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Heno. Find me on Facebook at Heno Heiter. Send me a message there on either way, or find us on our Facebook page.
Yes. And you, Brian?
You can find the show also on Twitter at the Crazy Life Pod. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. The other podcast I'm on, Salty Language, can be found at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. And that show is not safe for work. You can check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Crazy Life Podcast. What did I skip? Nothing. Okay. Yeah, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. It's weird because every week after I host the show, I feel like I'm forgetting something the next week because I don't have to read all of the other, you know, cause you cover the website, the email. Yeah. So, but you know, as I said earlier in the show, you know, we're not doctors or therapists or trained professionals of any kind. So anything you've heard here is just us talking, you know, and giving our opinions. If you feel that you need help, please seek out help, you know, from a professional. You know, there's all sorts of people out there that are willing to help you if you just want to reach out to them. And again, even if like your sleep issue has nothing to do with mental illness, you know, again, go have it checked out because it might really change your life. You know, give you a bunch of energy maybe that you didn't have before. And of course, you know, we mentioned, or, you know, each time that, if you're feeling suicidal, or as Jeannie pointed out, and it's a great point last week that I've overlooked, if you're feeling suicidal or homicidal, make sure you tell someone in your support system, call a doctor, call 911, go into a hospital, tell them you're having a mental health, crisis. And, you know, there's a lot of resources over on our Facebook group. I actually have some more that I'm probably going to be adding soon. I think it's on a page that says notes, and I just put a bunch of resources in there for help finding therapists, support groups, just crisis lines, that kind of stuff. So if you need something, that's all there, or reach out to one of us and we can, you know, try to help you find, you know, something, for it. But again, you know, reach out and use the tools at your disposal, you know, for getting help. But again, if you're feeling suicidal, you know, again, it can just be planning or thinking about, like, if you're thinking about your suicide note, are you planning steps? Can you see scenarios playing out? Any of these kind of things, like talk to your doctor, talk to a friend, you know, talk to someone. Don't keep it inside. Make sure you talk to someone, so that they can make sure that, you don't harm yourself or others. And, same with the homicidal thoughts. If you're planning stuff out, again, you know, I got to get used to saying it that way. Forgot. What am I forgetting? Oh, the last thing I always talk about, you know, instead of finding the things that divide us, you know, start trying to find ways to, meld with people, find ways that you're similar, or find someone who's different and reach out to them. I love Jimmy Kimmel said that on the Oscars the other night, and that's a great point, Find someone who is different than you, reach out to them and talk. You don't even have to talk about the differences, but you can have a difference with somebody, but you can also realize that you have like 20 similarities to that one difference. So, do that kind of stuff. Tell a friend that you appreciate them. Reach out to people that you haven't talked to in a while. Just make sure they're okay. Just say, hey, I was thinking about you the other day. We haven't talked in a while. What's up? And, cause you just never know, or if there's someone at your work or wherever, just try to be of service to somebody. You'll also find that it makes a huge difference in how you feel about yourself. So even if you're not doing it to be nice, you're doing it to just be a jerk or a narcissist.
Right.
But yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Well, with that, as I mentioned the last time I was on the show, I said last week. Yes, Brian.
I know what I forgot. If you use iTunes, please leave us a review and subscribe. And if you listen on Stitcher or other podcast apps, please make sure that you use the like or share buttons so that it helps us potentially grow our audience. Thank you.
Yes. And if you want to be on the show with us, you want to be have a story you want to tell, you want to come on, let us know. If you have something you want us to talk about, let us know. Everything, you have positives and constructive criticism. Yeah, that's what I was going for. Constructive criticism. Let us know, folks. We want to hear from you. That being said, you good, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That being said, keep breathing, wiggle your toes, and get a good night's sleep.